Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this really important event. My name is Kamel Hawash. I'm the chair of PSC, and I'm really delighted to be moderating, as they call, or chairing this particular webinar from the heart of what is happening in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. They say that an Englishman's house is his castle. So imagine then if your house is under threat 24 hours a day. And the threat is that you will be thrown out of it, literally, by an occupying army. And that as you are thrown out, the keys are handed to settlers who have come from somewhere else to take your house, and they have really no legal status to do that. That is really what is happening in Sheikh Jarrah at the moment. So this is an important event for the Palestine Solidarity Campaign to hold, but it's also very personal to me, which adds to why this is important. But I care very much about every single family that is under threat. One of the families whose house could be taken belongs to my late cousin, Jamal. And I very much remember when I was 8 or 9, going from Saudi Arabia, where I was born, to Jerusalem, to my grandmother there, after we'd seen our grandmother in Jericho. And then I befriended this cousin. I was told he's your cousin, who was Jamal, whose mother and father lived in Sheikh Jarrah. And we would walk. He would take me from Wadi Joz to Sheikh Jarrah, to the house that his family now, after his death, are under threat of losing. And although there's some history to this to do with the role that the Jordanian government played and UNRWA played, that is still not concluded, this is very much about understanding what it is like to have to live in a house where you are under threat of eviction at any moment. And we know that in early May, a number of families, 4 families, may face that fate. And one of these families is Al-Kurd family. And we are really privileged to have with us members of the family to tell us about the situation. I'm really particularly delighted that Nabil El-Kurd has agreed to talk to us tonight. If you Google Sheikh Jarrah and you find YouTube films, you will see his mother, his late mother, who campaigned for a long time for these evictions, the threat of eviction to be lifted. Nabil El-Kurd, who unfortunately passed away early on at the age of, I understand, Nabil, 103, but I'll come to you in a minute. So what we have with us tonight, Nabil El-Kurd himself. Next to him is his daughter, Muna, who's done a great job in leading the campaign related to Sheikh Jarrah in Arabic. And then we'll hear from Mohammed El-Kurd, her brother, who has been leading the campaign from America in English. And I'm really thankful to Malak Shweki, who's going to do some of the translation when we need it. And we will finish by getting some understanding from Amany Khalifa from Grassroots Al-Quds about the wider issue of the settler colonialist project to evict Palestinians from parts of Jerusalem in particular, and to replace them with settlers or turn their homes, their land, into a park. We'll hear more about that towards the end. But we are a solidarity campaign, so not only will we be hearing about this, we'll also be taking some actions as we go through this particular webinar in terms of emailing and tweeting relevant people. And my colleagues at PSC, particularly James, will be guiding us through that when we come to it. So without further ado, I would like to invite Nabil El-Kurd to talk to us. And I want to start by asking Nabil to just give us his recollection of how he came to be in the house he is in now. And then I'll ask some more questions. So going back, I understand 1956 was significant in that was the year in which 28 families were allocated houses in Sheikh Jarrah. And one of these, I think, was Al-Kurd family. So thank you, Nabil, for joining us. And in fact, you can tell us a little bit about your recollections, your memory, ذاكرتك عن القدوم للشيخ جراح. تفضل.
أول شيء أنا اسمي نبيل سعيد الكرد من سكان حي الشيخ جراح سنة 56. أنا تهجرت.
My name is Nabil El-Kurd and I was born in 1956 in Sheikh Jarrah. No? What year?
No.
Again, please.
مش السكن مش
أنا سكنت سنة 56 بالحي بالبيت.
Yeah, I lived. I moved to Sheikh Jarrah in 1956.
احنا تهجرنا من حيفا الحقيقة وسكتنا في بيت 4 متر في 4 متر. كنا أنا وخواتي وأمي وأبوي في بيت واحد عبارة عن بيت، عن مطبخ، عن حمام، عن نوم، عن ضيوف. وبعدين صار في إحصاء للاجئين وصرنا لاجئين وأعطونا كرت للاجئين.
Yes. So we were exiled from Haifa to other places, and we lived in a very small house with my father and my mother and my family. And then they gave us the refugee card by the UNRWA.
المهم صار اتفاقية ما بين الحكومة الأردنية ووكالة القدس. الحكومة الأردنية قدمت أرض ووكالة القدس أخذت الكرتات وبنيت البيوت ودخلناها سنة 56.
There was an agreement between the Jordanian Authority and the UNRWA about giving the refugees a land in Jerusalem while taking back the refugee card, which happened. So they offered the Jordanian families, and the UNRWA has taken back after 1960 what? ايش عمو؟
56 56 سكنونا بالشيخ جراح.
Yes, after 1956 they located them in Sheikh Jarrah by taking the refugee card and giving them a land.
بعديها عشنا 11 سنة تحت الحكم الأردني، لكن بهذه الفترة الحكومة الأردنية ما سجلت لنا البيوت وصارت الحرب.
And after that, we lived 11 years in that place in Sheikh Jarrah under the authority of the Jordanians. But then happened the war, and the Jordanian authority did not register the land in our names.
المهم بعد الحرب بحوالي كم سنة بداية 72 جمعيات شرقية وجمعيات مستوطنين شرقية وغربية سجلوا هذه الأرض باسمهم بورقة مزورة. ولما رحنا على تركيا ما لقينا لها أصل، وجبنا رسالة من الخارجية التركية تعني إنه هذه الورقة لا تعني أي أرض في الشيخ جراح.
Yes, and almost in 1972, some like groups of settlers, western and eastern, from western and eastern sides, they came and tried to claim that these lands are for them. So the people of Sheikh Jarrah, they went to Turkey to register or to claim their ownership of the lands. But then they told them that these papers that are with them do not claim their ownership of the lands.
هم ادعوا إنه معهم ملكية من سنة 1875 وسجلوها بتركيا 1885. إحنا ما لقينا هذا الشيء، لكن هم مباشرة ب 72 رفعوا 4 قضايا، وإحنا حطينا محامي يهودي على أساس ما بنقدر نحط عرب لأنه كان في إضراب بهذيك الفترة.
Yes, so they claim that in 1875 they have registered these lands in the Turkish authority, in the Turkish lands, but then they said that it's in 1888 they claimed it, but they never found these papers in Turkey. Well, but in 1972 these settlers have like started a lawsuit against people who are living in Sheikh Jarrah, claiming that these lands are for them. So the people of Sheikh Jarrah had to set a Jewish lawyer, because there is no Arab lawyer who can do this job for them against in the Israeli courts.
عشان كان في إضراب هناك.
Because there was a strike. Yes, because there was a strike for the Arab people against the...
المهم القضية على 4 عائلات استمرت من 72 ل 76. بنهاية الأمر قدر المحامي ياخذ من المحكمة أمر إنه هذول الناس دخلوا بطريقة شرعية، ما احتلوا البيوت احتلال، بواسطة العقد اللي موجود بينهم وبين العائلات. العقد اللي موجود بين الأردنيين، المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية ممثلة بوزارة الإنشاء والتعمير، فيها بند رقم 11 بنص إنه بعد 3 سنين من سكننا تسجل لنا إياه، لغاية الآن ما سجلت.
Yes. So the whole journey of the lawsuits in the courts kept on going on from 1972 to 1976. But then the lawyer had made made it to take an order to keep them in their houses by claiming that these did not steal the houses, did not steal the lands, or did not take an occupation of the lands. As in Article 11 in the agreement between the authority and the people who took the lands, Article 11 states that after 3 years these lands should be registered. However, the lands were never registered by the Jordanian authority.
المهم بعد ال 76 صار في نقاش بين المحامي اليهودي اللي قلنا ومحامي المستوطنين، استمر لغاية 82. غسلوا له مخه، بطل محامي، صار إنسان يهودي، واتفق هو وياهم على ظهرنا وقالوا إنه إحنا كسكان بالحي مستأجرين محميين، هم أصحاب الأرض، مع العلم فيش ولا واحد بالحي بيعرف ولا واحد وقع ورقة، وهذه الاتفاقية عبارة عن كلام شفهي بين المحامين 2 واعتبرته المحكمة قانون.
Yes, from 1976 to 1982, it kept on the journey of the lawsuits, and then the Jewish lawyer of the Arab families in Sheikh Jarrah and the settlers lawyer, they made it to sort of like an internal agreement between them both, and the Arab, the lawyer for the Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah, has sort of like been brainwashed, claiming that these lands are not for the Palestinians in a way or another, that he became like-minded as the settlers lawyer, and he agreed that these lands are not for the Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah.
If I can just interrupt, so basically,
agreed, yes.
And that the agreement, or what they thought was the agreement, was that they became tenants and had to pay rent. So I think that's the key point. If I can ask Nabil to tell us a little bit about the additional bit that he extended in the house and what happened to it, I think that would be really, really important.
Could you please, Kamel, repeat your question?
Yeah,
please?
just to tell us about, that bit of the house that he built or they built and that then was eventually taken over. إنه على البيت الجزء اللي انبنى وتحول للجزء اللي أخذوه المستوطنين يسكنوا فيه، بس عنه نركز على الموضوع هذا.
طيب يا سيدي، احنا حاضرين. المهم استمرت القضايا لأنه اليهود برضو باعوا الملكية لناس ثانيين حتى يستمروا بالإخلاء البيوت، لكن أنا قدمت للبلدية إنه تصريح مشان أبني.
Yes. So he said that the claims kept on going on, and even the people who claimed the ownership, the settlers who claimed their ownership of the lands, have even sold these claims and these lands to other people to keep on going on of attacking the Palestinians who are living in Sheikh Jarrah. Mr. Nabil have been to the municipality to claim his ownership of the land and
يطالب ترخيص بالبناء.
to claim his ownership and registration of the land.
But also to permission to build on it as well.
To build, yes.
Yeah, okay.
يعني رفضوا ياخذوا الطلب مني حتى من باب البلدية، بقول لهم بدي أسوي ترخيص، قالوا لي ما في ترخيص وطحوني طحي. المهم بنيت زي أهل القدس اللي عندهم هلا حوالي 23,000 بناية تحت الهدم، لأنه إحنا بنبني بدون ترخيص، لأنه بلدية الاحتلال بتعطينا يدوب 3% و97% لليهود تراخيص.
Yes, so when he went to the municipality asking for the registration papers, he was not accepted to be entering the municipality and was kicked out. and he also had, because of such restrictions that he faced, and his many Jerusalemites and people who are living in Jerusalem still face, he built without having the permission for building a house, just like any other, like a huge number of buildings are under threat of demolishing because of not giving permission to build. However, they need to live, so they build houses. So he built a house because also the municipality only gives 3% of the Palestinians who are living in Jerusalem a permission to build. However, 97% of the permissions go to the Israelis.
المهم استمريت وبنيت، وبالوقت اللي انهيت بنى البيت كلية قعدنا نفكر امتى ندخل في البيت وما ندخلش. بعد 4 أيام بالضبط بعد ما خلصت البيت اجى القاضي من محكمته على بيتي وسكره لانه انا بنيت بدون ترخيص. وكانت هاي اول مره بالتاريخ انه قاضي بيتحرك من المحكمه مشان يسكر بيت، وكان البيت لواحد عربي فلسطيني.
So he kept on building the house, and he finished the house, and he started to have a conflict between himself, like when to go to the house, how to go to the house. So after 4 days of finishing the building of the house, the judge himself from the Israeli court, he moved by himself personally and moved to Uncle Nabil's house and asked him to leave the house and to not be able to live in. So, and it was the first time for an Israeli judge to move from the court to a Palestinian house and ask for such thing, just for a Palestinian living in Jerusalem.
المهم أخذ المفتاح وحطه بالمحكمة، وضل 9 سنوات المفتاح بالمحكمة مسكر البيت، ودفعت 97,500 شيكل إسرائيلي غرامة عشان أنا بنيته.
So the judge confiscated the key of the house for 9 years in the court, and never allowed him to go with his family and live there after even building it. And they made him pay 97,000 shekels for the court as a way for not binding the law.
So the fine was 20,000 pounds, basically 20,000 pounds sterling. Yeah.
مظبوط.
Yes.
المهم يا سيدي ضل البيت مسكر 9 سنين، لكن مرة استمرت القضايا. أخذوا أول بيت بال2008 لين كامل، بعدين البيت عبارة عن عائلتين، دار حنون 3 عائلات بال2009، دار الغاوي 7 عائلات. مباشرة بعد دار الغاوي ب3 شهور اقتحموا البيت المستوطنين وكسروا الباب ودخلوا يوم 3/11/2009.
Yes. So the house was kept closed, and the key was at the court for 9 years. And in 2008, few families were actually evacuated, as in Hanun 3 families, Ghawi family 7, Ghawi name family 7 families were evacuated. And after that, with 3 months in 2009, the house, Nabil Kurd's house, was broken into by the Israeli settlers, and was sort of like stolen, and they lived in it without a permission or without any like a court law or in order.
باليوم اللي أخذوا البيت عندي صار في مشكلة بالحارة وكذا، وهجمنا عليهم وهجموا علينا. بالنهاية أجى البوليس، رئيس مغفر صلاح الدين، يعني أكبر رأس بالقدس بالشرطة الإسرائيلية، بقول لي شو بتسوي؟ قلت له هذول سرقوا داري. قال معهم أمر محكمة. قلت له اطلع لي أمر محكمة خليني أشوفه. أرى هو الأمر بقول لي إنه يبقى المفتاح في المحكمة، المفتاح بخزينة المحكمة، وتحت سكرتارية المحكمة كاتبة لا مانع من إعطاء المستوطنين المفتاح. هون هذا الحكي ما عجبه للبوليس. أطلع المستوطنين وسكر الدار يوم 3/11.
Okay, so after that happened, after that incident, a clash happened between the Kurd family and the settlers that have broken into the house, and the thing that reached that the police of that area has reached the place, and the chief of the police asked Mr. Nabil El-Kurd about what happened, and Mr. Nabil said that they stole my house and they broke into the house. So the police chief said that there is a court statement and a court order for them to take the house. He said, please read me the permission. And the permission stated that the key of the house should stay at the court. But then the secretary of the court says there is no like it is okay to give the key for the settlers. There is no problem with giving the keys for the settlers, and the police chief did not agree with what happened, so he asked the settlers to be kicked out from the house again. So this happened in November 3rd.
المهم بيوم 1/12 بتفاجأ بانه بيجي نفسه القاضي هذا رئيس الشرطه مع المحامي تبعي، بيفتح الباب وبدخل المستوطنين. بقول له شو اللي صار؟ قال لي هيك قالت المحكمه وانت ارجع للمحكمه. المحامي تبعي قال لهم في عليه امرين هدم، بدنا نهدم، ما خلونا نهدم.
Yes. So in December 1st, the same police chief and Mr. Nabil El-Kurd's lawyer came back to the house, and they allowed for the settlers to enter the house again as under security, under protection, and with permissions. So Mr. Nabil asked what happened, and they said that there is a permission from the court for the settlers to get into the house. However, the lawyer asked for demolishings for the house because there are some court orders to demolish the house, but the police officer did not agree on demolishing, and he gave the house for the settlers.
لكن وقت ما اخذوا البيت ب1/12 ما سكنوا سكان، حط فيه البوليس 4 حراس فقط لا غير. بقيوا بالبيت تقريبا 4-5 أشهر. بعدين من اللي سمعوه من الجيران انه هذه كلها قصه مزيفه وعم بيصوروا البيوت، هربوا الحراس اللي حاطينهم في البيت.
Okay, so even like on December 1st, same day, there were no actual residents of the house. So the police officer for like bodyguards or the house to keep on protecting the house until there are some residents available to live in the house. However, after 5 months of them being in the house, steal houses from the Palestinians. So after 5 months, these actually left the house, sort of like ran away because they did not to stay in the house after hearing all these stories.
Okay, I think if I may, Amany, Malak, to bring us forward is to talk about what is the plan now, or what is going to happen in May, because part of the reason for the campaign is a possible well, there's an order for May. So can we bring it forward so that we can then move to Mohammed and the other speakers, if that's okay?
الحقيقة احنا صار علينا قضايا بشهر 10 العام الماضي بالإخلاء، والمحامي تبعنا قدم استئناف. في نهاية الأمر قبلوا الاستئناف وبلشوا يعني يتداولوا. بيوم 9/2 كان عندنا المحكمة مشان الاستئناف، رفضوا الاستئناف وقرروا إخلاء 4 عائلات اللي هي كرد وسكافي وجعوني والقاسم، وحطوا علينا كمان مرة غرامات 20,000 شيكل للمعتاد محامين وقضاء.
وأمهلونا ل2/5 لإخلاء المنزل.
والإخلاء ب2/5 حيكون.
Okay, so in the 10th of in October 2020, there were the court have actually started like planning for the evacuation of the families of Sheikh Jarrah, who are now facing the evacuation. And in the 9th of February, there was an appeal by the lawyer for asking for another decision by the court and for restudying the whole lawsuit. But however, they rejected the appeal and they decided on evacuating them on the May 2nd. and there is still only one appeal left for them.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to thank
No, معلش احكي بس جملتين.
تفضل.
احنا بعد ما هربوا المستوطنين الحراس بمعنى صح، جابوا لي مجموعات من المستوطنين الزعران مشان يسوي اشكالات يوميه، واللي اجوا عندي على البيت اكثر من 60 جروب، ومن خلالهم انحبسوا رجال وانحبسوا نسوان وانحبسوا اطفال وانطحوا من الحي بين شهر و3 شهور.
Oh, so Mr. Nabil took us back a bit to the story where his house was taken by the police, and some guards were put in the house because there were no actual residents to live in the house. And he said that after the guards, the police guards left the house due to the stories that they've listened, they brought settlers in order to make troubles for the people who are living around them and to make problems for them. And more than 60 group of settlers actually keep to the house just to make troubles and problems. The thing that resulted to to many women and many people, many men, women, even children being imprisoned and put in jail according due to these made-up clashes by settlers who are coming to do some troubles.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Nabil for giving us this briefing, which, I mean, just imagine living under this for that many years, the threat of being evacuated, thrown out of your house, but also the additional painful thing, which is the settler colonialism part. This is about throwing Palestinians off their land and replacing them with Jewish Israeli settlers. That is what Israel is about. And this is why it is important that we all stand together with the Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah as they do their best to stay in their homes. That's all they want. They are the homes. They exchange the, if you like, UNRWA cards for, because at the time in 1956, that's what they were told. We have your cards, you get a house here, which they accepted, and now the settlers want them out, but they want to replace them with settlers. So I want to thank Nabil very much indeed for talking to us. I don't know if Muna wants to say anything about the campaign. Why did it start now? I mean, this has been ongoing for many years. So maybe Muna can just very briefly tell us why now and what she, from her standpoint in Arabic, would like us to do before we move to Mohammed.
يعني الصراحة أنا بحب أحكي إنه يعني وعيت على الدنيا وأنا بتقاسم منزلي مع المحتل مع المستوطنين مجبرة، لأنه أنا كفلسطينية ما إلي الحق أعيش ببيت مبني بدون ترخيص، لكن المستوطنين إلهم الحق يعيشوا فيه على الرغم من إنه بلا ترخيص.
So I opened my eyes the day I was born, sharing a house, sharing my home without my permission with the settlers in a way that I'm forced to deal with them every day. However, this house was supposed to be my house, and to live it freely, and to be given the permission to build a house and live with it freely without being under threat every single day, and not just having Jewish and Israeli people who are giving the permissions to build houses and live without being under threat.
اللي صار بالتحديد، وبحب دائما ارجع اذكر فيه، انه بال56 احنا سكننا هذه البيوت اللي احنا هلا قاعدين فيها، وكان من ضمن بنود الاتفاقيه انه بعد 3 سنوات الاردن تسجل هاي الارض باسمنا. يعني المفروض انه يصير في تسجيل باسمنا عشان نضمن حقنا بانه نعيش بامن وسلام، لانه تهجرنا اوريدي بال48 من حيفا وعشنا كل هاي الخربطه والمعارك لحتى نرتاح بالقدس، لكن للاسف هذا ما صار. عشان هيك احنا اليوم عايشين بتهديد بشكل يومي انه احنا ممكن ننخلى من بيتنا باي لحظه.
So the thing that I'd like to mention, Muna says that in 1956 we were living in the houses that we're living in these days, and that the Jordanian authority promised in the agreement that after 3 years of giving the land to the Palestinians of Sheikh Jarrah, the lands will be registered in the name of the Palestinians themselves. But unfortunately, this never happened by the Jordanian authority, which kept them living in a conflict and in a journey of suffering this whole time, and being under threat every single day to be exiled again, because they already have been exiled from their hometown and home city before, and they have to live it again and again and again every single day and be forced to share a house with an occupier.
احنا يعني توجهنا للاردن كثير مرات وللسلطه الفلسطينيه ولكل حدا معني بقضيه حي الشيخ جراح لحتى يتحركوا ويثبتوا لنا هذه البيوت باسمنا، لكن للاسف كل الوقت ما كنا نلاقي اي ردود ايجابيه او اي ردود حتى. فاحنا انا كمنى اللي عن جد وعيت على الدنيا هيك مخربطه وفي ناس بدها تسرق بيتي، مستوطنين بدهم يسرقوا بيتي، شعرت انه انا ممكن اتوجه للعالم عن طريق السوشيال ميديا، عن طريق حمله اعلاميه ضخمه اللي احكي لهم فيها انه يا جماعه اصحوا، اللي عم بيصير بالشيخ جراح وفي القدس بشكل عام جريمه حرب يجب ايقافها. احنا اكثر من 500 شخص ممكن يتم تهجيرنا في اي لحظه.
We asked for help from too many people and from many authorities as Jordanian, Palestinian, and many other authorities, but we never had any positive response by them, which the thing that even pushed us further to ask the help from the whole world to move forward and change in the situation and have an action changing the situation through multiple ways, through campaigns, social media, and any other possible way, just to have an eye-opening word or an eye-opening event that can drive a change. And we try to make a turn, another turn in the whole incidents and the cause that is happening in Sheikh Jarrah, because what is happening in Sheikh Jarrah is a war crime. To evacuate people and to dispossess and dislocate people.
وبحب أختم بأنه إحنا معركتنا مع الاحتلال الإسرائيلي هي معركة مش قانونية، هي معركة سياسية بحتة. لذلك إحنا بنتوجه للعالم إنهم يطلعوا بمواقف سياسية دبلوماسية واضحة ضد جرائم حرب الاحتلال، يقولوا لا للتهجير القسري، لا للتطهير العرقي اللي عم بيصير بالشيخ جراح وكل القدس. لأنه يعني بالنهاية بس يعني بختم بهاي الجملة، إنه لو إنه فعلا المستوطنين يملكون أي وثيقة تثبت ملكيتهم لهذه الأرض كان إحنا زمان طلعونا وما ضلوا معنا بهالمعارك هاي. بس إحنا معركتنا إلنا 49 سنة بهاي المحاكم وعم بنناضل وبنقاوم لحتى نضلنا بأراضينا، وهم ما بيملكوا أي إثبات، بس عمالهم بيعملوا قوانين لحتى تتأكد وتشجع على الاستيطان في القدس.
And I'd like also to include that to conclude that with the fact that our conflict and the suffering and the cause that we're having now is not a legal case. It's a political case. It's a political cause, and it's a political conflict because it doesn't have to do with laws and with laws. It mainly has to do with asking people to move forward diplomatically and on a political way, asking for a change, saying no for ethnic cleansing, saying no to dislocating people. And also I would say that if the settlers who are claiming their ownership of the land had any paper that proves the ownership of the land, they would have removed us from the houses long time ago, not being with us in this year, trying to evacuate us all possible ways, even create laws just to evacuate us from the without having any papers that prove their ownership of the houses.
Thank you very much indeed. We have a question which I think you've answered, which is what gives you the strength to continue your struggle for justice? And I think you've told us this is your home, this is your land. You want to be in Jerusalem. You no power on earth that has any morals would try to eject people from their houses. I know we all here on this call, particularly in the UK, will go to bed tonight not worried about getting up in the morning to the knock of Israeli soldiers throwing us out and to cheering illegal settlers coming in to take our homes. And just to emphasize that there was a reference in the call to the fact that there are literally tens of thousands of Palestinian homes under threat of demolition. I want to thank Nabil and to thank Muna for talking to us tonight. I know people have suggested there are various films to watch, but you've heard it from the people on the ground tonight, the people who are facing eviction themselves. And by all means, watch the videos, but you know, just think about it, as I said, what it would be like to wake up in the morning to that dreaded knock. We will stand with you, obviously, here in the UK, and we will be taking some action. And I think my colleagues, James, have we got our first action ready?
Yes, we do. If people during this meeting can click on the actions that we're putting in the chat box. So there's one which is to write to the Foreign Office here in the UK. And there's one which is also to post a tweet directly at the British Consulate in Jerusalem to take action. So if you keep an eye on the chat box, myself and Lewis will be posting them in there. And if during this meeting and afterwards, you can take those actions.
So I will ask just one more question to Nabil and Muna, which is, have you seen the British Council come down to Sheikh Jarrah? What representations have you made to him, and what message they have been given you? بس بسأل بالنسبة للقنصل البريطاني، هل نزل عندكم على الشيخ جراح، وإذا يعني في رسالة أعطاكم إياها وجه لكم إياها؟
Yes.
بابا جاوب بقول إذا أجا ولا لا.
هو أجا القنصل البريطاني مع عدة أناصل، مع رئاسة الوكالة الغوث، مع رئاسة أوتشا، لكن وعدوا انه يعطونا بالنسبه للوكاله، وعدت انها تعطينا كتب تقول فيها انه احنا بنينا هذه البيوت باتفاقيه الاردن واخذنا كارت المؤمن. لغايه الان احنا ما اخذناها. بكره بده يجي عندنا القنصل مره ثانيه. وهون انا بدي
we lost connection.
فلسطينيه واسرائيليه، لكن لغايه الان ما صار.
انت قلت انت بدك وبعدين انقطع الخط، انت بتقول هون انا بدي.
لحظه، طب خليها تترجم وبعدين بكمل ايش بده.
Yes.
تمام.
Okay. So Mr. Nabil says that the British Council and other consulates have actually visited the Sheikh Jarrah, also with the representative of the UNRWA and the Ultra organization. And he promised to provide people of Sheikh Jarrah to prove that to prove the things that they say that the UNRWA have given them, and with the help of the Jordanian family, Jordanian authority, to provide them with the land and give back their refugee card. And he also mentioned that tomorrow the British Council will come to Sheikh Jarrah. I'm مكمل منهم إذا سمحت.
جاي عندي أنا وعند الصباغ الحقيقة، لكن أنا أهم طلب بدي أطلبه، بدي أرجعه لوعد بلفور. وعد بلفور قال إنه يكون في دولتين مستقلات على هذه الأرض، لا وكان من أهم الشروط لهيئة الأمم اللي بيقبلوا بإسرائيل. لكن لغاية الآن ما صارت الدولة الفلسطينية، وحاليا بيحاربونا كأفراد مش كدولة. ما بدهم حد ولا من الفلسطينيين موجود بهذا الأرض. عندهم مشروع اسمه الحوض المقدس.
Yes. So the British Council will be visiting Mr. Nabil and also a Sabagh family in Sheikh Jarrah, and he will ask him for one thing, is to go back to Balfour Promise that happened in 1917 that stated about the two states, two independent states, the Palestinians, the Israeli. However, there is no, there's still at this moment there is no Palestinian state, and the Israeli state is attacking the Palestinians as individuals, not as a state. So they're just being they're attacking, or they're dealing with them as individuals, and they don't want Palestinians in Jerusalem at all.
Thank you very much. اوكي، شكرا كثير استاذ نبيل، ومره ثانيه بنشكرك. ممكن بكره تقول له للقنصل انه كان في اكثر 250 بريطاني سمعوك وانت بتتحدث معهم، وانه هم اللي بعثوا لك التويتس اللي راح نبعثهم كمان شوي. So I said to Mr. Nabil that obviously we show our solidarity, and he can tell the consul tomorrow that the tweets that he saw last night, as in tonight, came from the over 250 Brits who listened to Nabil and to Muna and tweeted the consul to act, because as I know in the chat, people always say we need actions, and our action is to tweet and to insist that the British government takes on its responsibility as a signatory to various aspects of international humanitarian law, to the Geneva Convention and so on, and to stop war crimes, because the evictions will be a form of war crime. Thank you again very much indeed. I move on to Mohammed El-Kurd now. I think, Mohammed, they've covered quite a bit, your father and your sister, but please do give us your thoughts about what we could do in particular. Thank you very much, Mohammed.
Thank you, Kamil, and thank you for hosting this webinar. I really appreciate being invited to go on. As everybody heard, you know, it was even tumultuous for us to listen to the legal history of Sheikh Jarrah, and what my father said and what my sister said does not even scrape the surface of this legal history. But this is to show that this is indeed not a legal battle, but a political one, and one that tackles psychological torture. In Sheikh Jarrah, we have been in this case since 1972, and we have known not one reality except the reality of going and coming back from Israeli courts, of spending our money on Israeli courts, of dealing with Israeli courts and Israeli judges who are settlers, and dealing with Israeli juries who are settlers as well, and dealing in Israeli courts that are settler courts, and asking them to side with us against settlements. As you know, that is an equation that is not in our favor whatsoever. These courts are built by and for Israeli settlers to support and uphold Zionist supremacy in Jerusalem and continue this long-standing tradition of ethnic cleansing since 1948. This was one of the reasons why we started the Save Sheikh Jarrah campaign, to highlight and to expose the Israeli judicial system as one that is, you know, I want to say discriminatory, I want to say an apartheid system, I want to say an asymmetrical system, but these words do not even scrape the surface of the Israeli judicial system. It's working in collusion with these settler organizations that are working day and night to dispossess us, be it by raising millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to dispossess us. For example, the owner of the UK football club, Chelsea, his name is Roman Abramovich. He donated $100 million just 2 months ago to the settler organization Elad, the settler organization responsible for displacing us from Sheikh Jarrah, as well as displacing 1,500 individuals from Silwan next door. These are the types of people that we are working with, and they are working in collusion with the Israeli government. Furthermore, it's not just the money and resources. These are people who are working to make our daily lives living hells, be it by harassment, be it by violence, be it by you know, bothering our neighbors to force them to leave, because it's more than just loss of property and land theft. This is a big and fully rounded project to drive out and empty the Palestinian population from Jerusalem. So that being said, and I'm sure Amany will talk more about this. That being said, I invite everybody watching us tonight. First of all, thank you so much for your time. I invite everybody watching us tonight to reevaluate the language in which they talk about the Palestine situation, to reevaluate the ways they approach the Palestine situation, because clearly what we have today is wonderful, but it's not enough. And we need to be taking much more firmer stances against the Israeli occupation, against Israeli colonialism, and against Israeli apartheid, because our country is being swallowed whole. And that doesn't just mean we lose our property and we lose our homes. It means we are losing our lives. It means we are losing our dreams. It means we're losing prospects of our career. If I'm allowed to indulge a little bit in my own misery, I am 22 years old. I'm studying in the United States. I'm getting a master's degree. In the case that they should come on May 2nd and throw us out of our home, blow up our doors and throw us out of our home, this means that I can no longer be in this country. I would have to go back to Jerusalem and support my family financially to be able to afford a house, to rent a house in Jerusalem, because as you know, Jerusalem is an increasingly expensive city. It's an increasingly gentrified city. And it's a demographic war that we have with the Israeli authorities right now. So not only are we losing our homes, but we're also losing the prospect of living in Jerusalem. And so we're reduced to the West Bank. And so we lose our Jerusalem residencies. And for those watching that do not understand, Palestinians in Jerusalem are not citizens. We have residencies that we have to renew every 10 years. And Israel has a long-standing policy of revoking residence through many, many policies. And if you live outside of Jerusalem for more than 9 months, I believe, you lose that residency. So again, I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's very important to support the Sheikh Jarrah campaign. And it's very important to support the fundamentals of the Sheikh Jarrah campaign across historic Palestine, because what's going on in Sheikh Jarrah is happening in Aysawiyah, in Khan al-Ahmar, in Silwan, in Masaf Yatta. It's happening all over Jerusalem. This is not an issue of singular homes. This is not even an issue of the 28 families in Sheikh Jarrah that are about to lose their homes. It's not even the issue of 550 people that are about to be on the street. This is an issue of a system that is built to displace us. This is a system that is built to ethnically cleanse us. So it's not enough for people to be in solidarity with us. People need to be in opposition of the Israeli regime. That is what we need in Sheikh Jarrah. I'm happy to take any questions also.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. That's been really helpful to elaborate further on what was said. I mean, there is a question which maybe I can put to you straight away, and maybe even to your father or sister, which says, where do those evicted typically go? Into hostels, on the street, or to stay with distant family? And does that mean cramped living conditions? So maybe you can have a go at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a good way to do an exercise with the audience. I'd like everybody to take a minute and imagine, you know, the anxiety of living in this for 49 plus years. Imagine the rage and fury of being forcibly removed by a gang of thieves from your home. I want everybody to just think for a second, how would you feel if somebody were to blow up your door right now and throw you onto the street? Knowing it's your home, you wouldn't want to give it up, right? This is a tumultuous thing. This is a torturous thing to be living in this for 49 plus years. I'm only 22 years old and I'm already burnt out. I'm already super disillusioned with life because this is an exhausting situation. But we also know that these are our homes. This is our land. This is our homeland. This is our property. This is our rightful belonging. So once we are thrown out in the street, we are going to live in the street. We're going to protest this in the street. We're going to be intense, like our neighbors, the Ghawi family did, like Amany El-Kurd did, like Hanoun family did. They lived in their cars in tents for almost a year, and the Israeli municipality of Jerusalem constantly demolished their tents. When we had a solidarity tent in our front yard, the settlers set it on fire. So, but we're still going to protest this and sit in the tent, and we're hoping that people, well, first of all, we're hoping that this doesn't go through because it's barbaric. But if it should go through, we're hoping that people come and sit in solidarity with us. Obviously, it's expensive and illegal to sit in the street. We can't do that for too long. So no matter how long we try, at the end, we're going to be rendered to go to the West Bank. And if we go to the West Bank and we stay in the West Bank for a year, we no longer are Jerusalem residents. And so we no longer have that connection to our native city. And this is something that all Palestinian communities in Jerusalem are suffering from, is the severing the ties between communities.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Mohammed. Really appreciate your comments. And I would like, we'll take some more questions. Please do put them in the chat so that we can get our brothers and sisters in Palestine to respond. I'd like to now move to Amany Khalifa from Grassroots Al-Quds to give us a wider perspective, I think, but still following the theme of what is happening in Jerusalem. Amany, you're very welcome.
Shukran Kamel, thank you. Everyone, thank you for organizing and hosting me in this very important event. So I want to go back to what Ammu Nabil, Uncle Nabil just said in the beginning, and Muna emphasized on, and Muhammad repeated again. It's not one singular case. So while doing this action, while taking all of these actions, it's really important to understand what's happening in Jerusalem, what has been happening and taking place in this city since its occupation in 1948 till nowadays. So looking at Sheikh Jarrah, it's essential to understand why Sheikh Jarrah, why now, why this family, and what implications and what will be the results later on in the neighborhood as a whole, not only specific numbers of families. So Sheikh Jarrah has been strategic since, again, 1948, because it connects. It's located in the north part of the old city, and it connects Mount Scopus, the neighborhoods in the north part of Jerusalem, where Hadassah Hospital is located, where the Hebrew University is located, to the west part, to the west communities that were occupied in 1948. So it is essential to have a majority of Jewish population living in Sheikh Jarrah to have further control. And when we speak about the neighborhoods that are surrounding the old city, we're speaking about Sheikh Jarrah, Wadi Joz, Mount of Olives, Tur, going south to Ras Al Amud and Silwan. This is the circle that is surrounding the old city. And inside the old city, there are many homes that are controlled, were taken from Palestinians, and there are nowadays settlers living in. The number of settlers in this only specific area in Jerusalem, almost 3,000 settlers living inside the old city and in the neighborhood surrounding the old city. And Karm al-Jaouni, I mean, when we speak about this El-Kurd family, this area of Sheikh Jarrah is called Karm al-Jaouni, is only one part of Sheikh Jarrah. Across the street on the west side, there is Kubaniyat Haroun, and there are other 35 families under the threat to be evicted from their homes. And it's really important to remember, because I remember myself when one family was evicted, their home was taken in 2017, and the family is called the Shamasni family. And in Sheikh Jarrah, two other homes in 2008 and 2009. 2008 Kamil El-Kurd, 2009 El-Hannoun Wal-Ghawi. There are two other families. So it's not only, these are the homes that were taken. There are other settler projects. One is Shepherd Hotel. The home itself used to be the house of Al-Mufti, Sheikh Amin Al-Husseini, and the home was taken in 2011, and there is a settlement, a massive settlement, 200 units were built in the place itself. And there is another Amana, it's a settler organization that is located in Sheikh Jarrah. So it's really important to understand that we're not only speaking about one specific family, it's a majority of Jewish population that the Israeli government is aiming to have in this neighborhood. And it's not only my terminology to use Jewish majority, this is the Israeli plan. When we look at the municipal plans for Jerusalem, it's written, and it's their terminology, to have 70% Jewish population in Jerusalem and 30% Palestinians. And this is the balance that the Israeli government and the occupation municipality is seeking to have in Jerusalem. So by default, every project and every step is taken toward achieving this policy. So what Mohammed is talked about earlier, it's the legal status of Jerusalemites. They are within the legal system, the Israeli legal system. They are residents, although they have been living in these homes prior to the settlers who came, but they are permanent, they are not permanent citizens, sorry, they are temporary. Their presence in the city is temporary, and it's about to be evicted every day and every minute. So the policy might be different. We might be hearing different names, different families, but the end goal is one end goal. Who has the right to be in the city? Who has the right to live in the city? And Palestinians all the time say, when they speak about the Nakba, they say it's not one event, it's a structure. And what we mean by saying a structure, that the Israeli legal system, even the settler movement is not a separate movement that is acting separately from the Israeli government. Let's take again Sheikh Jarrah, for instance. When we speak about Sheikh Jarrah, there are two main Israeli names figure that we hear all the time. First one is Aryeh King, and he takes tours, he brings settlers all the time, he threatens the families. And the second name is Aryeh Ben Gvir. So Aryeh King is a deputy member of the Jerusalem municipality, and Ben Gvir is an MK, a parliament member. Just by connecting what are the positions that these two men are holding within the Israeli system, it's really easy to make the connection that the settler organizations and the settler movements working directly, hand by hand with the Israeli government in order to implement all of these projects, in order to ethnically cleanse. And this term might be offensive for some people, and they might be defensive when we say ethnically cleansing, but these are the practices that Palestinians are facing. What they are threatened usually all the time, it's their presence, mere presence in Jerusalem. Because again, the goal to have a majority of Jewish people living in the city and not having Palestinians. So it always built up in order to reach this stage where we don't have our homes, where we don't have the right to live in our city. I don't want to take longer time. I prefer truly to have more questions, but I want people, while taking these actions, to remember this bigger picture, to remember this logic, how this settler colonial, and that's why it's a regime of settler colonialism, because it aims to erase Palestinians and replace them with settlers. And we see this manifested very clearly, directly with El-Kurd family in this case, but it's not the only case. And this is what I want everyone to remember, because we will be going back. We will be asking you to be in solidarity with X and Y and Z. So you might hear different names, but it's essential to understand that, one last comment, that it's not even a conflict, right? I mean, every time people are referring to this political situation as a conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, it's not a conflict that speak about dispute between two equal entities. You are, in Britain, are involved in it. It is an international oppression because Israel is taking benefit from the silence of these international countries and organizations. Not only that, it's being supported. The money of this colonial regime is maintained by the support of the West, mainly, more than anything else. And that's why everyone has a say in this. And that's why I appreciate such an action to speak directly to your parliament and politicians back in the UK.
Thank you so much, Amany. That was such a good addition to what we've heard already. I always say that we're used to a number of controls and commands when we work with the Microsoft stuff. There's Control Alt Delete. There's Control Find. The Israelis are good at Control Find and Replace, which you know is what you do when you want to replace a word all the way across the board. I'll claim copyright on this, but seriously, I mean, just think, this is the mentality. And of course, here in the UK, we are surprised that our politicians do not make that switch to see the Israeli regime for what it is a settler colonialist apartheid regime. Once they've made that switch, they know they have to act, and we want them to act anyway. And that is why it's really important to take action from where we are during this this particular webinar, to reach out to the Foreign Office, to reach out to the consulate in Jerusalem. Those of you who haven't been, the British Council can, from his office, look down on where our Kurd family live, and where my cousin's house is, and they know what is happening. They know that the Israeli settlers are taking over. They want to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. This is not an exaggeration. When you remove a whole people from their land, from their homes, and you replace them with people who have come in as occupiers, that is exactly what happens on a daily basis across the board. And it is really important that we keep up the pressure on our government here. And I know that on PSC webinars, we have people from across the world, and the message is the same wherever you are. Certainly tweet the British consulate in Jerusalem, but contact your members of parliament to tell them what you've heard tonight from people who are living this. They are not people who are telling it secondhand, they are saying it firsthand. Thank you all very much indeed for your contributions. I just want to, a repeated theme that's come across in the questions is the issue of what about Jewish Israelis? How do they express support for for Sheikh Jarrah? And what about Israeli politicians? Is there any Israeli, and they say Jewish party because they want to distinguish between the Arab parties which are supportive of people in Sheikh Jarrah and people in Sheikh Jarrah? I don't know, Amany, if you want to respond or to let others respond.
Yeah, I mean, it takes me one step back. I'll address your question. When we say settlers, we're not speaking about crazy lunatic settlers who live in the West Bank and they burn tires and they cut olive trees for Palestinians and they attack them. I mean, we might confuse sometimes the terms, and we think about like exceptional part of the Israeli communities that we refer to as settlers. I mean, settlers, they're different. There are different levels, and the ones who live in Sheikh Jarrah and Jerusalem, or even Ma'ale Adumim, they might look to anyone as normative Israelis. And this is what I want to emphasize. I mean, not all of them might act violently, but all of them necessarily are considered settlers, undefined settlers. So just not to fall into this binary, right, all the time. I mean, and imagine one group of Israelis as settlers. And going back to your question, I mean, even within the Israeli, I remember, I mean, I just want to share my experience being in solidarity back then in Sheikh Jarrah, and this is how I came to know the family. When Muhammad was still a kid, meeting all of these delegations and people coming in solidarity and telling them his story, I was one of those people, and this is how I met the families in Sheikh Jarrah for the first time. And there were different groups of people. Now we are in this digital age, and we are taking all of these actions virtually. But back then, people from different international organizations were going, showing presence for the families, promising them with different things. Others, Palestinians and Israelis, were protesting, and the view of this solidarity is sometimes, I think, is problematic. Because I remember when I first went to Sheikh Jarrah, there was a sense of a community that we don't have there anymore. And I think it related somehow to the politics of solidarity, because people were showing up there, taking control over the families, not allowing the voice of the families. And there were Israeli activists. But even Israeli activists, not necessarily they were aligned with the messages of the Palestinian families, because what Muhammad's father has been saying, and Muhammad himself has been saying, justice is fulfillment of right of return for Palestinians. It's not about the homes that were given by the Jordanian government to all of these families. It's about going back to the west side of the families where they were first evicted from. It's about going back to Lid, to Jaffa, to Haifa, right? And and some of the Israelis that were in solidarity are still in solidarity with the families. They are not in support of right of return for Palestinians because it contradicts their presence in the state of Israel, right? So when we speak about Israelis going there, I mean, sometimes, and maybe like if there are people of color, they might relate to what I'm trying to convey here. There are different hierarchies, there are different systems, and solidarity cannot be conditional. And this is what Palestinians are asking. And sometimes the Israeli solidarity is conditional because it doesn't provide space for the voice of Palestinians. It hijacks this voice. So I think even if we see visually Israelis there, we need to be in doubt, we need to question, we need to dig deep in order to understand the internal politics of such solidarity. And there are ones with fully solidarity. I'm not dismantling this group as well. What I'm saying, don't look at it in black and white. It's way more complicated than this. And I urge everyone just like to question their positions about it as well. Like white people showing solidarity to Palestinians. It's as important as the discussion that we're having around Israelis.
Thank you very much, Amany. I also hear that when Palestinians visit Sheikh Jarrah, there's tear gas and stun grenades. When Israelis come, there aren't. So, you know, take from that what you wish in terms of the type of solidarity. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions here. People are saying how much they have learned from coming to the webinar tonight, and they really thank you all for all the information that we've had, and are committing, even if they haven't done it already, to tweet and to contact the Foreign Office and so on, which is, you know, what we will all do. We'll keep up the pressure on this, and we will widen it. I'm just looking to see if there's any other question that I can convey to you. Otherwise, I was going to, if there are no more questions that I have picked up, is to finish with allowing maybe Nabil to give us a final message to people here from Sheikh Jarrah that we can take with us and continue to act to raise the issue that you face.
الحقيقة أن رسالتنا دائما هي نفس الرسالة اللي بنطلبها كل مرة من الناس الشرفاء والدول الديمقراطية اللي بتنادي بالحرية والمساواة، إنه إحنا هون ما دخلنا محتلين على الأرض، إحنا تحت الاحتلال. المفروض اللي بيصير فينا هو جريمة حرب مذكورة بالقانون الدولي. وشغلة تانية إنه إحنا
Yes, so the first thing that I'd like to mention, and I always ask from people around the world who ask us in what to do and how to help. I always ask them under the claim of democracy that we are people who are living under occupation. We did not come to the land by chance and by coincidence. We are under occupation. We used to live in this land. We've been living in Palestine for a long time, and we're under occupation. And what will happen in Palestine is a war crime, and are war crimes that have been stated in the international law. And according to the international law, what's happening in Palestine and what's happening nowadays in Jerusalem in specific is a war crime.
بعدين يعني بعد اللي حكيته إنه المفروض تضل الحملة هاي مستمرة ويصير في ضغط سياسي قوي جدا، وبالذات من الدول اللي إلها خص بهذا القضية اللي هي السلطة الفلسطينية والدولة الأردنية وحتى دولة بريطانيا العظمى اللي أنشأت إسرائيل وبنت إسرائيل، وكنا إحنا طرف من البناء لكن ما قربت علينا. المفروض بالوقت الحاضر توقف مع هذول اللاجئين الفلسطينيين اللي هي كانت سبب بنكبتهم الكبيرة. عشان هيك لازم يسووا قضية بالمحكمة الدولية حتى يثبتونا في بيوتنا إحنا وكل أهل القدس، مش بس حي الشيخ جراح.
So what I ask for, and I would like for other people to help in achieving, is to create a huge political pressure to maintain people in their houses from the involved states, as in the Palestinian Authority, the Jordanian Authority, as well as the UK's authority. And it was the main one of the main reasons why Israel actually exists and why it actually exists now. So it should stand by the Palestinians to maintain them in their houses, and to take this lawsuit and to take this case to the International Criminal Court in order to ensure the stability and the ownership and to maintain the rights of the Palestinians who are living now all over Jerusalem, not only in Sheikh Jarrah, but all people in Jerusalem, to maintain their houses and to keep their ownership of their houses and homes.
شغلة صغيرة بس، إنه العرف بيقول اللي الإنسان اللي بيقعد في مكان أكثر من 50 سنة، إحنا 65 سنة، بصير صاحب هذا المكان. إحنا دخلناه بطريقة قانونية وباتفاقية مع الأردن، والمفروض الأردن تساعدنا بهذا الموضوع بشكل جيد. وشكرا لكم.
Yes, so the customary law says that after staying in a house for 5 years, this house is claimed to be yours. And yes, صح حكيت عمو؟
50 سنة.
تعيد المعلومة.
رائع.
50 سنة. Yes, after staying in a house for 50. Yes, it's okay. It's like a customary law that says that after staying in a house for 50 years or staying in a place for 50 years, it's claimed to be yours. So we also ask for this customary law to be implemented and used. And thank you for your listening.
أنا بس بحب أختم أستاذ كمال إنه لكل الناس اللي عم تسمعنا يحطوا حالهم مكاننا، بس يتخيلوا إنه إحنا قاعدين بس بنفكر إنه بأي لحظة ممكن يتم إخلاءنا من البيت اللي عشنا كبرنا وعينا تربينا فيه، وممكن ننحرب منه بأي لحظة. فبس يحطوا حالهم مكاننا وعن جد يعملوا جهدهم ويكونوا عارفين إنه أي تويتة، أي شيء ممكن ينزلوه على السوشيال ميديا أو إيميلات تنبعث، هذا بالنسبة لنا مجهود عظيم وبنشكرهم عليه. ما يحسوا إنه إشي قليل، بالعكس هذا إشي كتير كبير ممكن يغير ويعمل فرق.
I'll spare Malak the translation because I think this is close to the end. So what Muna said is, put yourselves in our place. What would you do? What would you do thinking that in the morning someone could knock on your door and tell you to leave? What would you do? And that any support that they can get from, particularly from abroad, a tweet, a social media post that shows solidarity with the people of Sheikh Jarrah is something that gives them hope that they will remain where they are. So I'm sure Muna and Nabil and Mohammed in particular and the others, we will continue to do what we can here in the UK through the Palestine Solidarity Campaign to raise the issue of Sheikh Jarrah as one of the issues that we continue to raise. We face in the UK attempts for people that would force people to stop criticizing Israel. We won't stop. We'll continue to do that, but we'll continue to tell the Palestinian story. And your story is important because you have been refugees once, and now you are facing eviction from your home. So that's the second home that you've had. And I know Nabil, and I can't remember whether the translation covered this, when they moved from Haifa to Jerusalem, they lived in one room, a number of families measuring 4 by 4. So that's what they moved from to take these residencies in Sheikh Jarrah. And all they want to do is to live like any other human being, to go to sleep at night, thinking about the future, thinking about getting married, about having kids, having grandchildren, and living in peace as Palestinians did before their land was taken away from them by force. So we promise you that we will continue here in the UK to raise the issue and to raise other issues and to campaign to bring accountability to Israel for the crimes that it commits. That is what the Palestine Solidarity Campaign exists to do. We will continue to do that. Please, if you are in the UK and you're not members of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, join us. If you're able to support the work and you can donate to the campaign, please do. Our website is palestinecampaign.org, and this webinar has been recorded and I'm sure will be available very soon. So please watch out for it. And this will not be the end of our connection with Sheikh Jarrah. As soon as the COVID allows us to travel, people will be visiting, and now they know people there that they can go and visit and share and show solidarity. So I'd like to thank you all very much indeed. I'll start by thanking Malak for the translation, because I know how difficult interpretation is and how tiring it is. But I then will thank Amany, thank Mohammed El-Kurd and Mona, but in particular Nabil, for sharing his experiences with us, because it's through hearing real stories from Palestine and undistorted by the pro-Israel media that you know exactly what Palestinians face. So thank you all very much indeed for joining us tonight, and we'll continue to show our solidarity and support with the people of Sheikh Jarrah, of Jerusalem, and of Palestine. Thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.